On the 13th of November, in Moscow, Idaho, a crime so terrible would occur that the house itself was bleeding. Between 4 and 4:25 a.m., one of the most gruesome quadruple murders would take place at this home located on 1122 King Road. 4 innocent young college students would be brutally stabbed to death in their sleep. Around 6 weeks after this took place, police would arrest Bryan Kohberger. While this case is still ongoing and his trial has not taken place, I want to do my best to explain what really happened that terrifying night with the facts we do have. This is the night of the Idaho Murders. Really, the only place to start is the night this all happened. It was 9 a.m. on November 12th. Ethan, Chapin, and Xana Kernodle are seen hanging out at the Sigma Chi house located here. This was just a short drive over from their house located on King Road. On the other hand, Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogen were seen at 10 p.m. at a bar called the Corner Club. They ended up staying here for around 3 hours. At this point, Kaylee and Madison leave the bar and walk to a nearby food vendor called the Grub Truck. Fortunately, there is a security camera on their way that catches them for a brief moment as they make way to their destination. Upon arrival, you can see them on video as the Grub Truck was streaming on Twitch. This is where the last known footage was taken of Madison and Kaylee alive. They order food and hang out for around 10 minutes. It is at this moment when you can see them walk out of frame, where they would then get in an Uber for a ride home. This food truck is not far from the property on King Road and is around a 6-minute drive. They arrive home at around 2 a.m. At this time, Ethan and Xana have already left the Sigma Chi house and have arrived home at an estimated time of 1:45 a.m. It is important to mention that the 4 people that died that night were not the only people in the house on the night of the murders. There were actually 6 individuals present at that time, meaning there were 2 survivors. Furthermore, I feel these 2 survivors have been through enough, but are also important roles in this story. Therefore, I'm going to keep their identity concealed, and we will just refer to them as D and B. But before we can discuss the events that happened that night, we need to understand the layout of the house on King Road. This will allow us to grasp where everyone was the night this all happened. On this property, there are 3 floors and 6 bedrooms. On the first floor, we have bedroom 1 and 2. Bedroom 1 was vacant at this time, where then bedroom 2 was B's bedroom. On the second floor, there are another 2 bedrooms. 3 is D's room, and 4 is Xana's room. This is where Ethan would also be staying. On the very top, which is the 3rd floor, we have the last 2 rooms, 5 and 6. 5 was Kaylee's room, and 6 was Madison's room. However, Kaylee was not in her own room. She was sleeping with Madison in bedroom 6. It is reported that Madison and Kaylee have been friends since the 6th grade and have always slept together at sleepovers, which they also did from time to time when they lived together, so this was not out of the norm. Furthermore, Kaylee did have a dog, and for an unknown reason, Kaylee's dog was put in room 5. At 2:47 a.m., the phone of Bryan Kohberger, located in Pullman, Washington, stopped connecting to the cell tower according to police. which was just a short 20-minute drive from the King Road address. Then, at 2:53 a.m., a white Hyundai Elantra is seen driving towards the highway that leads to Moscow, Idaho. While it has not been confirmed for sure whose car this was, Bryan Kohberger does own a white Hyundai Elantra. What makes this suspicious is that at 3:29 a.m., surveillance cameras in the neighborhood catch what seems to be the same Hyundai Elantra making an initial pass by the house. Yet that was not the only pass the suspect would make. Through the next 30 minutes, the same car will make around 2 more passes by the house. It is understood that this is when the killer was scouting out the home to see if everyone was asleep. What we know is from the affidavit, D and B both made statements that all 4 victims were home by 2 a.m. and asleep by 4 a.m. But see, there was an exception. According to reports, at 4 a.m., Xana received a DoorDash order and was also on her phone at 4:12 a.m. using TikTok. This is important to remember because of what time the killer would make his first move. The suspect would enter the house at around 4 a.m. from the slider located here at the back of the house. He walked through the kitchen, up the staircase, and onto the 3rd floor. Once on the 3rd floor, sources indicate he first peeked his head into Kaylee's room and then headed straight into Madison's room, where he would take Kaylee's and Madison's life. This would make people believe it was a targeted attack. He did not just walk in the first room he saw and start killing. He was targeted on someone. Now, do we know if this target was Kaylee or Madison? No, we don't. At approximately a little after 4 a.m., Dee stated she woke up to see what she thought was Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Dee opened her door, but did not see anything. When she heard a comment of someone saying, "There's someone here," Dee shut her door and didn't think much of it. After the killer did what he did in Madison's room, he walked downstairs and right past Dee's room. And this is where things get strange. Now, if the targeted attack theory is correct, why did Xana and Ethan get killed? To try to make sense of this, we can look at the affidavit, as it's the only fact-based evidence we have. See, Xana's body was found on the floor, and for Ethan's body, well, really, we don't know. It states here in the affidavit that Ethan's body was found in the room. This could have been on the bed, on the floor. Who really knows? Again, what we do know is that at 4 a.m., Xana received a DoorDash order, and she was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m., meaning that if the killer came into the house around 4 a.m., it is very possible that they came face to face. Where then, it could make sense that the killer followed Xana into her room where Ethan also was. Nevertheless, as of right now, there's not enough evidence out there to come upon a definitive answer on why Ethan and Xana died that night. Or even is it plausible that we can know for sure if this was a targeted attack at all? However, it is a common opinion that people do believe that Xana and Ethan were collateral damage. What is also helpful is the statements D and B made. Well, more than D's statements than B's as where her room was placed. She was in the middle of all of this. From the affidavit, it states that around 4 a.m., D reported she heard crying from Xana's room and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." When she heard this, she got out of bed and opened the door, where right at this moment, she saw the man walking towards her. She froze in fear, and supposedly, from what Dee told the police, the killer walked straight by her. Dee then closed her door and locked it. where the police state the killer walked out of the house using the slider. This is odd. Why would someone kill 4 people and then all of a sudden decide to spare a life? Yet, what's even more weird is when researching this case, I came across something that I couldn't make sense of until recently. Dee never called the police. Actually, no one called the police until 11:58 a.m. the next morning and around 8 hours after Dee saw the killer. The reason for this is disputed everywhere online. People come up with wild theories, but I think the answer is quite simple if you try to understand and put yourself in Dee's shoes. Try to understand that a person in a shared living space will take precautions for themselves while also trying to ignore a certain level of behavior from roommates to keep the peace. I can absolutely believe that Dee would be frightened seeing a person in the home at 4 a.m., but lock herself in her room as opposed to confronting roommates. It would make sense to me that Dee rationalized all this by thinking her roommates brought someone back. There was some kind of argument or drama going down, and figured there would be no point getting into it with roommates at that time. Nevertheless, who knows? This is just my take. I could easily be wrong. Later, the police would find a fair amount of evidence that would point to Bryan Kohberger as the main suspect. His trial is set to occur in June 2025. This story has been a complex and difficult one to tell, for the reason that law enforcement are keeping a lot of information from the public. I believe this is for good reasons, as it will be used in the trial against Bryan Kohberger. Meaning that when this trial does take place, I believe that we will know a lot more about what really happened on that terrifying night on 1122 West King Road.